Hello everybody, Richard here again, the library storyteller, continuing my tale, told outside those city walls by a storyteller who came striding towards that circle of listeners, still wearing his broad-brimmed hat with a feather. Something was happening back in the city. But when he sat down and took his hat off, plucked out the feather and gazed at it, a dreamy sort of look came into his eyes, and he said, "You know that Ash boy walked out of the castle for the first time in his life, found the desert, got completely lost, fell over. Lucky for him, there were some brigands coming on a mission, riding their camels. And when they pulled him out of the sand, they put him on a saddle on a camel which was otherwise loaded down with sacks that chinked ominously. And they pushed a flask into the hand of that Ash boy, and they said, 'Here, have something to drink.' And he sipped it as the camel swayed and rocked through the desert. He never tasted anything like that before. It made him feel quite warm. It made him feel quite talkative. 'Oh,' he said, 'what's this we're riding on? I mean, I've never seen a dog this size.' 'That's not a dog, Ash boy, you fool.' And the camel turned its head to look back at the Ash boy, and then continued on its journey. Oh yes, they walked on, their camels on and on, through that great flat white waste. The sun burnt, and the Ash boy sipped from the flask. 'Tell us, Ash boy, where did you come from?' 'Oh, well, I'll tell you where I came from. I came from a castle. Yes, I came from the kitchens, you know. I used to help in the kitchens, and in the evening, I used to lie by the fire, and people used to sit by the fire, and they told stories, you know. Yes.' 'Oh, did they now, Ash boy? Did they?' said the brigands. 'Well, in that case, tell us a story.' The Ash boy thought. He'd lain there for hour after hour, covered in the ash, and he'd listened. Listened to the voices chattering all around him, listened to the stories that they were telling. And he said, 'All right, I'll tell you a story. Once there was a poor man who worked in his garden. But whatever he did, it never worked out. It was the wind, you see. It was the wind. It was cold. It just blew all the time. And when he put his hat on, it blew his hat off. When he did up his jacket, it pulled his jacket open. When he planted a tree, it knocked the tree down. There's never any justice for the poor, is there? No, Ash boy. No, you're right, said the brigands. 'Well, that's what they said,' said Ash boy. 'That's what they said.' And he took another swig from the flask. So that gardener, that poor man, one day he decided he'd go and talk to the wind. And he started to walk as it blew in his face. Cold it was, but he set his face to the wind and he kept on walking. And eventually he got as far as a castle, and then when he went inside, there was a giant just sitting there with a leather bag under his arm, and every time he squeezed it with his elbow, the wind blew. Yeah, the wind. So this poor man looked up at the giant, and he said, "Oi, you, with your wind, you knocked my hat off. You pull my jacket open. You knock my trees down. I can't live. I'm poor, and it's all your fault. The brigands were smiling now, laughing as they went on their way. And even the camels appeared to be listening as they swayed and rocked through the desert. Yes, said Ash Boy. Yes, you see, the giant stopped and he said, well, nobody ever told me that before. Really, nobody ever told me. I mean, how am I supposed to know? But don't worry, I'll make it up to you. I'll take this box. What am I going to do with that? Said the poor man. Ah, well, said the giant. Open it when you get home. So the poor man took the box. Yes, said Ash Boy. He took the box and he walked all the way back to his garden. When he opened it, it was filled with food. And now as they walked through the desert, the shadows were lengthening and the sun was setting. And a beautiful fiery glow was turning the desert red. And in the distance they could see a grove of palm trees, graceful, tall palm trees. And as they got closer, the palm trees ringed an oasis of still, beautiful, fresh water. And the brigands slipped off their camels and ran towards it. And Ash Boy, not quite as steady as they were, slipped off his, took it and ran with them. And they drank from it. They drank. And then they built a fire and they cooked a delicious meal. And they sat under the stars as the fire smoked up into the sky. And Ash Boy slept. Such a sleep as even he had not slept before. And the next morning, early morning, they shook him awake. Still half asleep, he staggered towards one of the camels. They heaved him up and stuck him on the saddle, and they set off again. They set off into that great sandy wilderness. That morning, the Ash Boy didn't feel quite like he'd felt the day before. The light was troubling him. He had a headache. But they pushed the flask into his hand and they said, Ash Boy, we're starting to like you. He saw all those grim faces, all those desperate men staring at him from their camels. And they said, Ash Boy, you haven't finished the story. And Ash Boy tried to think. He tried to remember. He said, give me a drink of that. And they pushed the flask into his hand once again. And they set off once again. And Ash Boy said, oh yes, I remember now. I remember, yes. That poor man with his box. When he got home, he opened the box. It was filled with food. He ate the food. But there was a king, you see. There was a king. And he found out. You see, he found out. And he sent some soldiers to take the box. So they took it. And he didn't have it. And the brigands nodded their heads. Yes, there's no justice for the poor. So, said the Ash Boy, that poor man, he went back. He walked back into the wind as it blew in his face, and he went all the way back to the castle and all the way back to the giant. And he said, oi, giant, you know that box? Well, they took it off me. Well, says the giant, I've got another one. Take it. And the poor man took it. There was a handle on it. And the giant said, when you get home, just turn the handle. So he went all the way back to his garden where the wind blew, and his hat fell off, and the trees fell down, and he took the box, said Ash Boy, and he turned that handle, and music came out, said Ash Boy. Music. Music, said Ash Boy, drinking from his flask. And when he heard that music, he felt happy, and he forgot about everything. Now the camels had gone so far through the desert that in the distance something was shimmering. And the brigand said, look over there, Ash Boy. That's where we're going. It's called the City of Wonders, Ash Boy. And you've not seen anything like it. No, said the storyteller, jumping up. Really, nobody has seen anything like that City of Wonders. But I've got to go back into my own city, so meet me here tomorrow, and I'll tell you exactly what was inside. And he put his hat on, and he stuck the feather back in his hat, and he went striding off. And I've got to go too, but tomorrow I'll tell you exactly what that City of Wonders contained. Until then, goodbye.